The Coffee Symphony, the string quartet's recording, ended abruptly as Nathaniel Archer slammed his laptop shut. Another submission that failed to move him. 3 years as executive director at Pinnacle Music Publishing should have been his crowning achievement, but these days even music, once his greatest passion, felt hollow. "Sir?" His assistant, Julian, poked his head through the doorway. "Your 10 o'clock canceled, but you have that investor's lunch at Tremont." Nathaniel glanced at his watch. "Thanks. I'll head out early. Clear my head." The September air carried a crisp promise of autumn as Nathaniel walked the Boston streets. He'd chosen a longer route today, avoiding the usual thoroughfares where memories of Bianca lurked, the gallery where they'd met, the restaurant where he'd proposed, the concert hall where she'd told him she was leaving for Ricardo Vega, the legendary conductor 20 years her senior with connections that stretched from Carnegie Hall to La Scala. "It's not personal," she'd said. "It's opportunity." A small handwritten sign caught his eye. Fortissimo Coffee and Strings. He'd never noticed this cafe before, tucked between a bookshop and a vintage record store. The warm aroma of freshly ground beans pulled him inside. The space was narrow but deep, with exposed brick walls adorned with musical instruments. Near the back, a small stage held a piano and microphone stand. Only a few tables were occupied at this hour. "Welcome to Fortissimo," a voice called from behind the counter. "What can I get started for you?" Nathaniel approached, prepared to order his usual black coffee, but the words died on his lips. The barista was tuning a violin while managing the espresso machine, multitasking with the focus of a concert performer. "Impressive coordination," he found himself saying. She looked up with a quick smile. Years of practice at both, though the violin is less forgiving than the espresso. Her fingers moved deftly over the strings, making minute adjustments. "What'll it be?" "Just black coffee, please." "Sure thing." She set the violin carefully on a shelf and moved to the pour-over station. "Haven't seen you here before. Just discovering us?" "Yes." Nathaniel watched her methodical movements. "Do you always play while you work?" "When I can. Owner lets me practice during slow hours." She glanced at him. "I'm Celeste, by the way." "Nathaniel." She nodded toward his laptop bag. "Let me guess, composer? You have that intense look." "Publishing executive, actually. Pinnacle Music." Her eyebrows rose. "The Nathaniel Archer? Your company represents Javier Monroe. His string quartets are phenomenal." Something in her enthusiasm caught his attention. "You know Monroe's work?" "Juilliard graduate, though you wouldn't guess it from my current gig." She handed him his coffee. "This one's on the house if you tell me what's coming next from your catalog." Before Nathaniel could respond, scalding coffee splashed across his hand and onto his shirt as someone bumped into him from behind. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." A flustered college student with an overstuffed backpack was attempting to mop up the spill with a thin napkin. "It's fine," Nathaniel said tersely, though his white shirt and expensive tie were now sporting an impressive brown stain. "Here." Celeste was already around the counter with a clean towel and a bottle of seltzer water. "The carbonation helps lift the stain." "Come on." She led him to the staff bathroom, working quickly on his tie. "Silk, right? This should do the trick." Her efficiency was impressive. "You've done this before." Hazard of the job. "Also, 4 younger brothers." Her fingers were nimble, the same precision she'd shown with the violin. "There, not perfect, but it'll get you through your meeting without looking like you lost a fight with a coffee pot." Nathaniel examined his reflection. The stain was nearly invisible. "Thank you. That was unexpectedly helpful. Just doing my part to maintain Boston's professional appearance standards." Her smile reached her eyes, amber-colored and direct. "So about that catalog information, come to our showcase next Friday. Monroe's premiering a new piece." The invitation surprised even him. "Bring your violin. Some of our A&R team will be there." Celeste's expression shifted from shock to caution. "That's generous, but—" "Professional courtesy." Nathaniel reached for his wallet. "How much for the coffee rescue?" "On the house. But I'll take a business card instead." As he handed her his card, their fingers brushed momentarily. Nathaniel felt something stir, a faint vibration like a string being plucked after long disuse. "See you Friday, Mr. Archer?" "Nathaniel," he corrected, suddenly uncomfortable with formality. And yes, I hope so. Outside, he paused to look back through the window. Celeste had returned to her violin, eyes closed as her bow moved across the strings. The melody, faint through the glass, was hauntingly beautiful. For the first time in months, Nathaniel felt a flicker of genuine interest in music again. Dissonant memories, the week passed in a blur for Nathaniel. 3 contract negotiations, 2 talent scouting sessions, and 1 particularly tense board meeting where quarterly projections dominated the conversation. Yet throughout it all, the memory of Celeste's violin playing lingered in his mind like a persistent melody. Friday arrived, and Nathaniel found himself checking his watch repeatedly as the showcase preparations continued around him. The event was being held at the Thornfield Conservatory, a converted 19th-century church with soaring ceilings and acoustics that made even whispers sound melodic. "Everything's set," Julian reported, tablet in hand. "Monroe's arrived, critics from the Globe and Herald are here, and the champagne is properly chilled." "And the guest list?" Nathaniel asked, attempting nonchalance. Julian raised an eyebrow. "Everyone who matters in the Boston music scene, plus your mysterious +1, if she arrives. She's a musician I'm considering for the new contemporary series." "Of course, sir," Julian replied, his tone perfectly neutral despite the knowing look in his eyes. The grand hall began filling with the usual crowd, wealthy patrons in designer evening wear, critics with their discerning expressions, musicians eyeing each other with equal parts camaraderie and competition. Nathaniel greeted them mechanically, his attention divided between his duties as host and the entrance. At precisely 7, the doors opened once more, and Celeste stepped inside. She looked transformed from the Café barista, dressed in a simple midnight blue dress that flowed like water when she moved. Her violin case was clutched in one hand like a talisman. For a moment, she stood hesitant at the threshold, scanning the room. Nathaniel excused himself mid-conversation and crossed the floor to her. "You came." "I almost didn't," Celeste admitted. "This is a bit intimidating. You're a Juilliard graduate. This should be familiar territory." Her smile turned wistful. "It was once." She glanced around. "Beautiful venue." "Come, I'll introduce you to Monroe." Nathaniel placed his hand lightly at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. The simple contact sent an unexpected warmth through him. They hadn't made it halfway across the room when a melodic laugh cut through the ambient chatter. Nathaniel froze, his body tensing involuntarily. "Bianca?" he murmured, barely audible. Celeste followed his gaze to a stunning woman in a crimson gown, her dark hair swept up elegantly. She was surrounded by admirers, her hand resting possessively on the arm of an older distinguished man with silver temples. "Your ex?" Celeste guessed quietly. Nathaniel nodded, his jaw tight. "And Ricardo Vega. I didn't know they'd be here." "We can avoid them," Celeste suggested. "No." Nathaniel straightened his shoulders. "This is my event. I won't hide." As if sensing his attention, Bianca turned. Her perfectly painted lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She whispered something to Vega, then made her way toward them, cutting through the crowd with practiced grace. "Nathaniel, darling." She air-kissed both his cheeks. "Exquisite event as always. Ricardo was just saying Pinnacle's taste in new talent has been adequate since you took over, Bianca." Nathaniel's voice was cool. "I wasn't expecting you tonight." Ricardo received a special invitation from the board. Her gaze shifted to Celeste, assessing her from head to toe. "And who might this be?" "Celeste Winters," Nathaniel said. "A violinist of exceptional talent." Bianca's smile tightened. "How lovely." "From which conservatory, dear?" "Juilliard," Celeste answered. "Though these days I'm more likely to be found at Fortissimo Coffee." Bianca's eyebrows rose. "How quaint, a hobbyist then." Before Celeste could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Ricardo Vega was welcoming a late arrival, a tall, imposing woman with silver-streaked black hair. "Madame Rousseau," Bianca breathed, her composure slipping momentarily. I didn't realize the Paris Opera's artistic director would be here. Last-minute addition, Nathaniel said, satisfaction warming his voice. She's considering several of our artists for next season. Bianca's eyes narrowed. I should greet her. Ricardo will want to discuss his summer residency proposal. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, Nathaniel, the Westfield Foundation Gala is next Saturday. Do bring your barista. It should be educational for her. As she glided away, Celeste let out a soft laugh. Wow, I think I just got frostbite. I apologize for her, Nathaniel said stiffly. Don't. Celeste's eyes followed Bianca's retreat. I've met her type before. Music as social currency rather than passion. She turned to him, her gaze direct. Why did you really invite me tonight? The question caught him off guard. I told you, professional interest. Is that all? There was something challenging in her tone. Before he could answer, Julian appeared at his elbow. Sir, Monroe is ready and Madame Rousseau is asking for you. We'll continue this later, Nathaniel promised Celeste. Find a good seat for the performance. Monroe's new piece is extraordinary. Throughout the showcase, Nathaniel divided his attention between his duties and stealing glances at Celeste. Unlike many in the audience who maintained carefully cultivated expressions of appreciation, her reactions were genuine, eyes closing during particularly moving passages, fingers subtly mimicking fingerings when the violin solos grew complex. Later, as the crowd mingled over champagne and canapes, Nathaniel found her examining a display of rare instruments in a side gallery. What did you think? He asked. The third movement was transcendent, she answered without hesitation. Monroe's understanding of tension and release is masterful. Would you like to meet him? Her eyes widened. I'd be honored, but first, she took a deep breath. I need to know why I'm really here. Is this about making Bianca jealous? The directness of her question stunned him. No, he said firmly. That's not it at all. Then what? Nathaniel considered several polished professional answers, then discarded them all. When you played that violin in the cafe, it was the first time in months music made me feel something. The admission felt raw, vulnerable. I wanted to see if it was a fluke. And was it? No. He gestured toward the main hall. I watched you during the performance. You still love music, purely without agenda. Celeste studied him, her amber eyes thoughtful. You used to love it that way too, didn't you? Before everything else complicated it, something cracked in his carefully maintained facade. Yes, that's why you invited me. I think so, he admitted. Though I'm not entirely sure myself. A gentle smile softened her features. Honesty. Refreshing in this crowd. She glanced at her watch. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. The Westfield Gala, Nathaniel said impulsively. Would you consider coming? Celeste tilted her head. As your date or as your statement? As someone who reminds me why music matters. Her expression shifted, surprise giving way to something warmer. In that case, Mr. Archer, I'd be delighted. As he watched her leave, violin case swinging gently at her side, Nathaniel realized he'd just made the most impulsive decision of his post-Bianca life. More surprisingly, he didn't regret it in the slightest. Unexpected harmony, the Westfield Foundation occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. As Nathaniel's driver navigated the Saturday evening traffic, Celeste fidgeted beside him, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of borrowed jewelry against her collarbone. You look beautiful, Nathaniel assured her, noting how the deep green of her gown complemented her auburn hair. I feel like I'm wearing someone else's life. She smiled wryly. My roommate Tessa works in theater costume design. She insisted this would make a statement. It does. The dress was elegant but unconventional, with architectural elements that reminded him of sheet music. Though I'm more interested in what you'll say tonight. About that. Celeste turned to face him fully. Why exactly are we attending this gala? The Westfield Foundation funds classical music education, yes, but it's also Bianca's family foundation. Nathaniel appreciated her directness. Professionally, Pinnacle needs to maintain the relationship. Personally, he paused. I'm tired of avoiding rooms because she might be in them. And my role in this drama? No role. Just company I actually enjoy. The car pulled up to the entrance, where photographers clustered around arriving guests. Celeste tensed beside him. "We can use the private entrance," Nathaniel offered. "No." She squared her shoulders. "If we're doing this, let's do it properly." They emerged from the car to a flurry of camera flashes. Several photographers recognized Nathaniel calling his name. He placed a protective hand at the small of Celeste's back, guiding her through with practiced ease. The top floor had been transformed into a vision of crystal and silver, with string lights creating the illusion of a star-filled sky. A string quartet played unobtrusively in one corner, while Boston's elite circulated with practiced charm. "Nathaniel!" a booming voice called from across the room. Theodore Westfield, Bianca's father, approached with the confident stride of a man accustomed to commanding attention. "Glad you could make it." The board was just discussing Pinnacle's new educational initiative. "Theodore." Nathaniel shook his hand. "May I introduce Celeste Winters, concert violinist?" Charmed. Theodore barely glanced at her. "Listen, Ricardo has some concerns about the conservatory program's direction. Perhaps you could—" "I'd be happy to discuss it," Nathaniel interrupted smoothly. "But first, I promised Celeste a proper introduction to the Foundation's work. If you'll excuse us." As they moved away, Celeste whispered, "Concert violinist? That's quite a promotion from barista." "It's not a lie. You are a concert violinist who hasn't performed professionally in 2 years." Before Nathaniel could respond, they rounded a display of Foundation achievements and came face to face with Bianca and Ricardo. Bianca wore diamonds that caught the light with every movement, while Ricardo surveyed the room with the imperial gaze of a conductor accustomed to obedience. "Nathaniel." Bianca's smile was brittle. "And Clarissa, was it?" "Celeste," she corrected gently. "Of course." Bianca's gaze flicked dismissively over her. Ricardo was just discussing the Foundation's new focus on identifying legitimate talent rather than wasting resources on hobbyists. Ricardo nodded sagely. "The true artists reveal themselves early. By 25, one knows who will make history and who will make coffee." Something flashed in Celeste's eyes, but her voice remained even. "And what reveals a true artist in your experience?" "Pedigree, training, the right mentors. The discipline to sacrifice everything else," Ricardo replied. "Not everyone is meant for greatness." "How fortunate those great ones must be," Celeste said, "to have never experienced failure or compromise." Bianca laughed, a silvery sound devoid of warmth. Spoken like someone justifying their own limitations. A small crowd had gathered around them, attracted by the undercurrent of tension. Nathaniel started to intervene, but Celeste placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You know," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden lull of conversation, "I used to believe that too, that true artistry existed only in rarefied air, among the chosen few. I practiced 16 hours a day, pushed away everything and everyone that wasn't music." She paused, her gaze traveling around the circle of attentive faces. "Then my father got sick, pancreatic cancer. Suddenly all those sacrifices seemed hollow compared to being present for him in his final months. I set aside my debut tour to be his caregiver." Her voice remained steady, though Nathaniel could see the emotion beneath. "After he died, I couldn't bear to touch my violin. The silence felt safer than risking music that might not be perfect." The room had grown completely still. Even the quartet had paused between pieces. Working at Fortissimo saved me. A regular came in, an elderly man with advanced Parkinson's. His hands shook too badly to hold his cup on bad days, but his face lit up when I played. Nothing prestigious, just simple melodies while his wife helped him drink his tea. Celeste looked directly at Ricardo. He told me it was the most beautiful music he'd ever heard, because it wasn't performed for critics or acclaim. It was offered as connection. That day, I realized true artistry isn't measured by the grandeur of the stage or the exclusivity of the audience. It's about whether the music creates genuine human connection. She turned to Bianca, her gaze unwavering. "So yes, I make coffee and play violin in a cafe. And every day, I witness music doing exactly what it's meant to do, bridge the spaces between us, even if just for a moment. The silence that followed seemed to vibrate with tension. Then, from the periphery of the circle, someone began to applaud. It was Madame Rousseau, her severe features softened with something like recognition. "Well said, Ms. Winters," the Paris Opera director commented. "I have attended countless performances by great artists that left me technically impressed but emotionally untouched. Perhaps our definition of greatness could use reconsideration." Bianca's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, Theodore Westfield stepped forward. "This is precisely the kind of conversation our foundation should be fostering," he announced, smoothly diffusing the tension. "Now, I believe dinner is about to be served." As the crowd dispersed, Nathaniel stared at Celeste with newfound respect. "That was extraordinary," she exhaled shakily. "That was terrifying. Can we find some air before dinner?" He led her to a balcony overlooking the city lights. In the quiet privacy, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me about your father? About the tour you gave up?" "It's not exactly café small talk." She leaned against the railing. "Besides, everyone has their stories, their reasons for the paths they choose. Not everyone bears their choices with such grace," he said softly. Celeste turned to him, the city lights creating shadows across her face. "What's your story, Nathaniel? What made music a business instead of a passion?" The question hit close to a truth he rarely acknowledged. "Another time, perhaps." "Fair enough." She smiled, but disappointment flickered in her eyes. From inside, dinner chimes sounded. As they turned to rejoin the gala, Nathaniel caught her hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For reminding everyone, including me, what matters." As they walked back inside, Nathaniel was conscious of the subtle shift between them, no longer merely a business connection or convenient date, but something uncharted and potentially precious. Crescendo of Truth October descended on Boston in a riot of color. The trees in the public garden flamed with reds and golds, and crisp mornings gave way to mellow afternoons. For Nathaniel, the changing season mirrored his internal landscape, old defenses falling away, making room for new possibilities. In the 3 weeks since the Westfield Gala, he'd found countless reasons to visit Fortissimo, manuscript reviews that somehow required coffee, conference calls that were better taken away from the office, meetings with composers who might appreciate the cafe's authentic artistic atmosphere. Each visit brought new revelations. Celeste's surprising knowledge of obscure Hungarian composers, her habit of humming Bach when concentrating, the way she remembered every regular customer's order and something personal about their lives. Today, he'd abandoned pretense entirely, arriving at closing time with no excuse beyond wanting to see her. "This is becoming a habit," Celeste teased as she wiped down counters. "People will talk. Let them." Nathaniel leaned against the counter. "I have a proposition for you." "Dangerous words, Mr. Archer. Pinnacle is hosting a benefit concert next month. Community music education for underserved neighborhoods." Celeste paused her cleaning. "A worthy cause. I'd like you to perform." Her hands stilled completely. "That's not funny, Nathaniel." "I'm serious." He pulled out a folder. "Monroe is premiering a new piece, a violin concerto. He specifically asked for you after hearing you play here last week. You brought Javier Monroe to my cafe?" Her eyes widened in alarm. "Why didn't you tell me?" "He wanted to hear you in your natural habitat, his words." Nathaniel opened the folder, revealing sheet music. "This is the solo part. He said it was written for someone who understands that music exists beyond concert halls." Celeste took the pages with trembling fingers, eyes scanning the notation. "This is complex, beautiful. Say yes." She looked up, conflict evident in her expression. "I haven't performed publicly in years." "I'm not ready." "Monroe thinks otherwise." "So do I." She shook her head, pushing the music back toward him. "You don't understand. After my father died, I froze during a rehearsal. Completely blanked, couldn't play a note. The panic attack started after that. You play here every day. That's different. It's intimate, informal. No judgment." Nathaniel considered her words carefully. "What if we create that same environment? A salon-style performance, invitation only. 50 people maximum. Hope and fear battled in her expression. I don't know. Sleep on it, he suggested, closing the folder but leaving it on the counter. The concert is 6 weeks away. Plenty of time to prepare. As Celeste locked up the cafe, an awkward silence fell between them, the first since they'd met. Walk you home? Nathaniel offered. She nodded, pulling her jacket tighter against the evening chill. They strolled through the lamplit streets, fallen leaves crunching beneath their feet. Tell me something, Celeste said suddenly. You never answered my question at the gala. About what turned music into business for you? Nathaniel hesitated, then decided on honesty. I was a pianist once. Not exceptionally talented, but passionate. My father... He stopped, surprised by the emotion that surfaced with the memory. My father called it a hobby for dilettantes. Said real men built empires, not fantasies. That's harsh. That was William Archer. When he founded Pinnacle, it was strictly business, just another asset in his portfolio. After college, he gave me an ultimatum. Join the company or be cut off. Nathaniel laughed without humor. I convinced myself I could change it from within, make Pinnacle about the music, not just the profit margins. And did you? Sometimes. Not enough. He glanced at her profile in the soft streetlight. Then Bianca happened. The perfect partner for a music executive, Celeste guessed. The perfect partner for my father's vision of who I should be, Nathaniel corrected. Socially connected, ambitious, pragmatic about the business realities of art. When did you know it wasn't right? Nathaniel thought back to the precise moment, a charity auction where Bianca had outbid a passionate young music teacher for a violin that the teacher had saved for years to try to purchase. When I realized she collected beautiful things not because she loved them, but because possessing them gave her power. They reached a brownstone with a faded blue door. Celeste stopped, keys in hand. This is me. Nathaniel looked up at the modest building, so different from his waterfront penthouse. Would you like to have dinner tomorrow? Not at a gala or industry event, just dinner. Her smile was worth the momentary vulnerability. I'd like that very much. Good. He stepped back, suddenly unsure of the appropriate farewell. About the concert, I'll think about it, she promised. Good night, Nathaniel. Good night. Celeste. Walking back to where his driver waited, Nathaniel realized with startling clarity that for the first time since Bianca, he was falling in love, not with an idea or an advantage, but with a person whose presence made his world more vibrant, more authentic. The recognition should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like finding his way back to a home he'd forgotten existed. 3 days later, Julian interrupted Nathaniel's budget meeting with an urgent message. Sir, there's a situation at Fortissimo. Ms. Winters asked me to inform you she won't be able to meet this evening. Nathaniel excused himself immediately. What happened? The cafe's being sold. New owners are converting it to a chain location. All current staff terminated with 2 weeks' notice. Nathaniel was already reaching for his coat. Call Langley and Legal. I want options for that property by end of day. At Fortissimo, he found Celeste sitting alone at a corner table. The cafe closed early following the announcement. Her violin case sat untouched beside her. Julian told me, he said, sliding into the chair opposite her. 3 years, she said quietly. 3 years building something special, creating a space where music and community mattered more than profit margins. Gone because the landlord got a better offer. Nathaniel reached for her hand. I might be able to help. Pinnacle could... Don't. She withdrew her hand. I appreciate the impulse, but I can't accept that kind of rescue. It's not charity. It's investment in something valuable. Is it? Her gaze was challenging. Or is it about protecting something you've come to enjoy? Another beautiful possession. Nathaniel flinched as if struck. That's unfair. Maybe. She sighed. I'm sorry. I'm just... processing. This place saved me when I was at my lowest. The thought of it becoming another soulless coffee franchise. What can I do? He asked simply. Celeste looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing past his tailored suit and executive persona to something more essential. Be patient with me, she said finally, and I've reconsidered Monroe's offer. I'll play the concert. Nathaniel's surprise must have shown on his face. Life's too short for fear, she explained. Fortissimo taught me that. If it's ending, I want its legacy to continue somehow. Maybe this is how. He wanted to pull her into his arms, to promise solutions and security, but he recognized her need for space and dignity. Monroe will be thrilled, he said instead. So am I. As they sat in the fading light of the cafe that had brought them together, Nathaniel realized that loving Celeste meant supporting her journey, not directing it. For a man accustomed to controlling outcomes, it was a profound and necessary lesson. Final movement. The night of the benefit concert arrived with the first snowfall of the season. The venue, a renovated warehouse in a formerly industrial neighborhood, glowed with warmth against the darkening sky. Inside, the space had been transformed into an intimate music salon, with clusters of comfortable seating surrounding a central performance area. Backstage, Nathaniel found Celeste pacing, violin clutched tightly in her hands. You're going to be magnificent, he assured her, keeping a respectful distance. In the week since Fortissimo's closure announcement, their relationship had deepened, but he'd been careful to give her the independence she clearly valued. 50 people feels like 50,000 right now, she confessed. What if I freeze again? Then we'll wait until you're ready. No pressure, no expectations. She gave him a grateful look. How are ticket sales for the benefit? Sold out with a waiting list. Your cafe regulars bought an entire section. This brought a genuine smile. They've been so supportive, especially since she didn't need to finish the thought. Fortissimo had closed its doors 3 days earlier, the staff gathering for one final evening of music and memories. Celeste had played until midnight, every request honored, every emotion poured into her instrument. 5 minutes. Ms. Winters. The stage manager poked his head into the room. I should let you prepare, Nathaniel said, turning to leave. Wait. Celeste caught his hand. There's something I need to tell you. After tonight, I've been offered a position. Nathaniel's heart stuttered. What kind of position? Teaching. At the Paris Conservatory. She watched his reaction carefully. Madame Rousseau arranged it. A year-long visiting professorship, with performance opportunities at the opera. The news hit him like a physical blow. Paris, that's wonderful. A tremendous opportunity. It is, she agreed. But it's also terrifying. And complicated. Because of us, he said quietly. Because of us. Because of what I want versus what I need. She set down her violin, moving closer to him. The last few months with you have been unexpected and precious. You helped me find my way back to performing, to believing in myself as a musician. You did that yourself. Maybe. But having someone who believed in me made it possible. She took a deep breath. I need to do this, Nathaniel. I need to know if I can stand on my own in that world again. He nodded, swallowing the selfish arguments that rose to his lips. I understand. But I don't want to lose what we found, she continued. It's rare and worth fighting for. Ms. Winters' places, please. The stage manager was back, more insistent. Nathaniel squeezed her hand. We'll figure it out. Go shine now. As Celeste took the stage to enthusiastic applause, Nathaniel slipped into his seat in the front row. The house lights dimmed, and for a moment she stood frozen in the spotlight, bow poised above strings. Time stretched, 1 second, 2, 3. A ripple of concerned murmuring began in the audience. Then Celeste closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes were tentative, almost questioning. Then, as if gaining courage with each measure, the music grew more assured, more vibrant. By the time the orchestra joined her, she was transformed, not just playing the music, but living it, her body swaying with the emotional currents of Monroe's composition. Nathaniel watched, transfixed as the woman he loved reclaimed her voice, her power, her rightful place. The music spoke of loss and discovery, of endings and beginnings, of the courage required to embrace change. As the final movement reached its conclusion, Celeste opened her eyes, looking directly at Nathaniel as she played the haunting final cadenza. The message in her gaze was clear. This is who I am. This is what I need. The audience erupted in a standing ovation the moment the last note faded. Flowers were presented, bows taken, but through it all, Celeste maintained that connection with Nathaniel, a silent conversation amid the thunderous approval. Later, after the reception had wound down and the last guests departed, they walked together through the gentle snowfall. "You were extraordinary," Nathaniel said simply. "It felt right," she admitted. "Terrifying, but right. Like coming home to myself." They reached the river, stopping to watch the snow-dusted waters flow beneath the moonlight. "I've been thinking about what you said before the performance," Nathaniel began carefully. "About Paris, and I think you should go. You need to do this." Celeste studied his face. "Just like that? No argument?" "Oh, I have arguments," he admitted with a rueful smile. "Selfish ones. But loving someone means wanting what's best for them, even when it hurts. What about us?" Nathaniel took her hands in his. "Pinnacle has been considering a European expansion for years. Paris would be a logical headquarters. Nathaniel, not right away," he clarified. "You need time to establish yourself to find your footing. But in 6 months, perhaps." Hope bloomed in her expression. "You'd consider relocating? What about the company? Julian's been ready for more responsibility for years. And there's this remarkable invention called video conferencing." He smiled. "Besides, I've been thinking about my own relationship with music. Maybe it's time I found my way back to the piano. Paris seems like an inspiring place to rediscover old passions." Celeste stepped closer, snow melting in her auburn hair. "Are you sure? This is your home, your empire." "Home isn't a place," Nathaniel said softly. "It's where the music makes sense again. For me, that's wherever you are." She leaned up, pressing her lips gently against his. "We'll need to be patient. Find our rhythm together." "I'm counting on it." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close against the winter chill. After all, the best compositions take time to unfold. Above them, snow continued to fall, each flake unique and perfect, coming together in a silent symphony of possibility, much like the unexpected harmony they had found in each other. In the distance, church bells began to chime, marking not an ending but a beginning, the first notes of a new movement in their shared story.